Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We'll just give it a second for people to join from the virtual lobby. It does take a second with Zoom, so we'll get going in just a little bit. I hope you are having nice weather wherever you are. Here in my
I
part of the
have.
world. Yeah, you are, Uwe? Good.
In Bonn, we have the sun was shining the entire day.
Oh, nice. There's a little bit of sun here today. It's in New Hampshire. It's a little unusual, but it's not quite cold. It's above freezing today. So, all right. Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Navigating Data Sovereignty, Choosing the Right RISE with SAP Infrastructure, hosted by SAPinsider and presented by T-Systems and Intel. So I'm Robert Holland from SAPinsider, and I will be your moderator today. Just a couple of announcements before we begin. This is designed to be an interactive webinar, so please, we invite you to submit any questions you may have through the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom window. So just click on that Q&A button, enter your question, and we will sort of get to them towards the end of the webinar, and we will answer as many questions as time permits. You will also be able to access this webinar on demand following either later today or tomorrow, sometime after the session. So I would like to introduce our panelists today. Our first speaker is going to be Uwe Birkenhauer. Uwe is the head of SAP Portfolio Management at T-Systems International. And our other speaker is Jan Kruger, who is the Technical Account Director for SAP at Intel Corporation. Jan has been having a couple of issues with Zoom this morning, so he's in the process of connecting, but he will be here in time to share his insights with you. So before Uwe gets started, let me just talk a little bit about what the challenge is facing customers today. Rise with SAP, or as SAP now calls the package, SAP Cloud ERP Private, is a bundle of software. And one of the things that SAP customers are under much pressure to do is firstly to move to, to move to SAP S/4HANA Cloud, particularly in the context of a SAP Cloud ERP package. Most of you, at least based on the research that I've done, probably 90% or more are likely to do a private cloud deployment in that environment rather than a software as a service public cloud deployment. And with that decision comes an infrastructure choice. Now, SAP by default, over the years since Rise with SAP was initially launched, they may have defaulted to other providers as in the bill of materials that was provided to customers. But there are challenges with that. As many of you European customers, there are challenges around data sovereignty, right? There's GDPR regulations. There are other regulations being pushed by the European Union or by individual countries within the Union. And then making that even more complex is the Cloud Act. Now, this is something that hasn't necessarily hit a lot of people's radar prior to this year, but under the U.S. Cloud Act, authorities based in the U.S. can compel access to information held by American cloud providers, regardless of where that data is held. So even if, for example, you're a customer of you're using an Azure instance that's in Europe somewhere, or you're using AWS or GCP or something similar, the US authorities could potentially compel some of that information to be transmitted to the US. And this is something that has come up a couple of times. So just to sort of, take your pulse as to, where your thinking is on this, we're gonna show a quick poll right now that'll just sort of to help get a feeling of, where you are and what sort of concerns you might have when it comes to running your SAP systems on American hyperscalers. Um, so yeah, so the poll should be up on the screen now. So if you could, choose one of those options. Um,
Yeah, choice four is not correct, Robert.
yeah, I was
Sorry.
going to
So
say I didn't think the choice was called choice four. I thought it was called something else.
no, it would be. It
Um,
has to be. So the idea of choice four was American hyperscalers. I have concerns using American hyperscalers. So because,
yes. All right.
yeah, this was the
So yeah, so if the first option is you have no concerns at all. The second option is hyperscalers are fine for non-critical workloads. The third choice is it would be okay, but you would prefer a European sovereign cloud solution. Or the fourth choice is you have no problems with using American hyperscalers.
no. This is the
No.
first one. The first
Oh,
one
that's
is
the first
you have
choice.
problems. You have problems, and you want to use a sovereign cloud solution.
Ah, you have problems and you want to use. Okay. So, sorry, my apologies. Yeah, choice four is you have problems with American hyperscalers and you want to choose um, an American cloud solution. So, um, I'm not sure if anybody has voted yet, but if you could, let us know your thoughts, that would be sort of interesting as we embark on this conversation because we're seeing from the SAP Insider side an acceleration of the move to SAP S/4HANA Cloud. And, that is being driven by, well, firstly, that push from SAP to encourage customers to move to, move to Cloud ERP. But it's also being driven by a lot of the maintenance expiration that's coming up. For example, if you're on an earlier version of SAP S/4HANA, anything prior to 2020, even SAP S/4HANA 2020, your extended maintenance has either already your
Standard.
standard maintenance has already expired or it is due to expire this year. And even the extended maintenance on versions like 1709, 1809, or 1909 expires next year. If you're running earlier versions of ECC, so enhancement packs below 6, so 1 through 5, then you have your regular maintenance, your standard maintenance expires this year, and there is no extended maintenance. So only if you're running ECC, ECC 6, EHP 6, 7, or 8, that's when your you have the option to choose extended maintenance beyond the end of 2027. So all of these things are sort of putting pressure on SAP customers, and many are choosing to move, particularly so that they can access some of the functionality that's available in SAP Cloud ERP. So, for example, generative AI, like in Joule, or other functionality that's part of the bundle, but they're doing it at an accelerating rate. So, over the last year, we've seen nearly a doubling in the number of customers who are planning on using Rise with SAP, as the package used to be called, SAP Cloud ERP Private. So, with that sort of setting the scene, Uwe, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk to us a little bit about navigating the data sovereignty, because it is a challenge for people, particularly in Europe, and how they can go about choosing the right infrastructure.
Yeah, thanks, Rob, for the introduction and the um, yeah, and the good entering of this very important topic. So first, I like to talk about our experience that we have with several RISE projects that have we been doing over the last couple of years to give you an idea what we see, what's important towards RISE. And I hope that my co-speaker, that Jan Krüger, will be able to join to bring it more down to the technical part, because I will give an overview about what RISE is and what how we see it and how we tell our customers how to navigate it. Yeah, therefore I choose this navigation vehicle a visual because I think this is really good, and you will know that SAP has rebranded RISE. Yeah, Rob, you said it. RISE used to be a bundle of software and infrastructure and services, but now RISE with SAP is a journey. It's a journey for existing SAP customers who have already been using ECC or other versions and will now have to transform their existing SAP landscapes to the next level, whereas Grow with SAP has been rebranded. It's no longer the public cloud edition. This is for new customers who haven't used SAP before. They obviously have to choose a different path. It's not about transforming and migrating. It's more about implementing and choosing the right processes. So we focus on RISE today, on the RISE journey, which will lead more or less for most of the existing SAP customers to Cloud ERP private. Yeah, and there's a lot of confusion about the different uses of the term public cloud edition, public cloud in terms of hyperscaler. So this is a lot of confusion, and I try to shed a little bit of light in that. So we will talk about RISE with SAP, leading to Cloud ERP private, running on a private cloud. Okay, so this is where it's all about. And I think the idea of perceiving RISE as a journey is really it's a really good one. It's a really good analogy because when you plan a journey, you need to know where you want to go. This is exactly the same as with the RISE journey. So where do you want to end up, and which way are you going to go? There are many different shades of green to brown with some blue in between. So there are many ways that you can choose how you want to transform your existing SAP system to the new cloud-based world. And there is also in Cloud ERP, there are also in Cloud ERP private, there are two options. There is the more kind of packaged tour, which is called the packaged option, obviously, or there is a more individual approach to it, which is called the tailored option. I will come to that in a minute. And you need also to decide what you're going to take with you, if there are some data you want to leave behind, or you can leave behind, also in terms of processes. And very important, who will be your travel companion? Will you be on your own, or do you have someone who will lead you all the way? And this is, especially in this context, we have seen that experienced providers who have already done several RISE projects can really make a difference in the ease or the troubles you will have on the journey here. Yeah, because it's a long journey and it's a complicated journey. And of course, you need to find out for yourself, when do you want to arrive, which means when do you have to start. Yeah, depending on how long your journey will be, you need to figure out when to start. And if you are already on a version, for example, on an S4 version where the support is ongoing, you don't have to move now. You can move later. But as Rob said, if you are on an SAP version where the maintenance runs out, then you have to start earlier. These are all very relevant questions. And last but not least, also, is it worth the journey? Yeah, the business case behind that. How can you calculate a business case that is at least that at least covers the efforts you have with the values that come out in the end? So we see that the RISE journey basically comes with three dimensions or three pieces of luggage that you have. Yeah, you need to you need to think about the RISE along this dimension. So the first dimension is the business transformation. You change your underlying ERP architecture, your ERP software. So you are going to change business processes. You are going to change existing functionality by new functionality. This is something you need to be aware of and you need to think about. The next thing is you will definitely or most likely change your operating model, because you might run your SAP systems in your own data center, or you have a service provider who runs it for you. With RISE or with Cloud ERP, SAP will be your service provider, and all contracts will be with SAP. You need to have you need to consider the consequences of this as well. And last but not least, and this is where the sovereignty part comes in, this is the cloud-based software, and it comes with a cloud transformation. And these are the three pieces of luggage that you have to carry along. Let's have a what this means. So the first piece is the business transformation piece, and as I already said, it's about something you see very tangibly, because it affects your business processes. There are new business processes that have not been there before, and you need to decide, do I want these business processes? Are they working for me, or can I just skip them, or whatever? You also need to look into your existing business processes. SAP is, someone said it, I think I really like the idea. So they said the reason, or the biggest competitor for RISE with SAP at the moment is old SAP versions, because customers are so happy with their running SAP systems that they don't want to change them, and they don't see the additional value another software will bring them when they are very happy with the existing processes. So you really need to look into your existing processes, what is customized, what has been built on top of the SAP application. So what to do with that? Are you going back to standard? Will you be able to follow the clean core principle? Or will you even be able to get rid of a lot of existing customizations because the new standard covers them? This is something you need to look inside, and it takes a lot of planning and analyzing in front of that. And this is not all. There's a lot more you need to consider. For example, if you have integrations with third-party software, if there are interfaces with production systems, with design systems, with your workshop organization system. So there's a lot more that need to be considered, and also take into account some strategic considerations. So you might have local business units that are also affected by the change. You might have plans for consolidation or expansion or mergers and carve-outs. And why do I say that? Because the bigger you think this picture of your business transformation, the more likely is it that you will find things that you can save in this process. Yeah, if you plan consolidation anyway, then do it together with the RISE with SAP transformation, because then you might have the chance, with this consolidation, with the reducing of your IT footprint, of helping the RISE business case. And another very important question, and SAP usually doesn't like it, but it's an important question for all the customers. SAP thinks their business suite is the center of the universe, and everything else is everything else, and you really don't need it. But from your enterprise point of view, is it really true? Is the SAP first strategy that you're going to follow, that you will use just tools from SAP for your analytics, for your AI, for your data management strategies? So this is something that you need to consider as well. And one thing, if the more you adopt SAP in a standard mode, the easier it is to integrate third-party solutions. So Clean Core goes in both directions. Clean Core is good for being upgradable in terms of SAP, but Clean Core is also important if you want to use third-party software and additional applications. So this is in a nutshell what it takes for the business transformation. There's a lot to consider, and from our experience, it takes a lot of time, and it makes absolute sense to do an analysis project before you start the transformation, to get an idea about the roadmap, about the approach, about the things that need to be considered, and with that to build a sound business case. And last but not least, the question, can all your systems be migrated to RISE? Or are there systems that are so old where you say, okay, they have to run for another 5 years, but I really don't care about support? Or is there any other things that work in the other direction? For example, if RISE permits or if RISE is just available on a hyperscaler platform, and you are in a regulated from a regulated industry that must not use these platforms, then you cannot use it. So is there anything around that? So this is also something that you need to consider on your journey planning. So second thing is the operating model transformation. So SAP markets Cloud ERP as software as a service, but everyone who looks inside it and takes a look at the architecture and the complexity, I think would agree that it's a software as a service like model. Yeah, it's not true SaaS, but it's a software as a service like model. So this changes the operation approach that you had with your old systems. And the big thing is SAP is the only partner for services in the Cloud ERP in the RISE context. So you don't have any other providers running your RISE with SAP systems, which from an SAP point of view reduces complexity, but from an enterprise point of view increases complexity, because usually you don't only have SAP systems, you have other systems as well, non SAP systems that are also managed by someone. And so where you had one provider for your IT, for your security, for example, you now have SAP and the other providers. So this is really not reducing the complexity. It's at least adding an additional layer of complexity. And there are other changes. The subscription model changes from perpetual to subscription-based model. You may have different SLAs. And what does this mean? You may have different SLAs for your RISE and your RISE and non-SAP systems, because SAP is the owner of the SLAs. And this could mean, for example, that you have a kind of black hole in your data center when it comes to SLAs, and SAP can change those SLAs and the requirements towards Cloud ERP at any moment. And we have seen that the services, the catalog, you might have seen it. It's a roles and responsibilities catalog, which describes what is the obligation of the customer, what's the obligation of a service provider and of SAP. This keeps changing, and it's an evolving product. Yeah, so this may be something that you have to take into account, that there is something that you cannot control in terms of SLAs in your data center. And the last thing, the last big thing is the cloud transformation. Yeah, so it sounds like a no-brainer. Cloud ERP is only available in the cloud, but until now, that meant you have the choice of one of those hyperscaler platforms. You could also choose for specific industries and for specific workloads. In the small part, you could choose SAP, but basically this idea was to scale this on the American hyperscaler platforms, which wasn't a problem. At least the problem was not imminent. Yeah, so Rob already mentioned it. There are some problems because there is regulation which is valid in the EU, like the General Data Protection Regulation, that cannot brought in line with regulation that is enforced in the US. And one of the famous examples is this Cloud Act. The Cloud Act has been around since 2018, since Trump's first term, but until now, there were some basically that this was not a problem. You will remember the famous Schrems 2 legislation or where someone challenged this and the court said, yes, you're right. It's you cannot rely on that there will be no data breach, yeah, because the Cloud Act allows, or not even allows, forces American based companies to provide data on request regardless where this data is located, and it doesn't even count if it's from private, if it's from individuals or from companies. So this hasn't been a problem when Europe and the US have been best friends, but you just have to look into the latest press releases and see the American security strategy. You can no longer rely on that. So this really poses a threat. You cannot ensure that a company that is based in the US will not comply to the Cloud Act. They will. Yeah. So everybody is looking for sovereignty. And what does sovereignty mean? There is no single definition of sovereignty. There are many different definitions around with different levels, data sovereignty, operational sovereignty, technological sovereignty, and there are others. But basically, sovereignty is about being independent and being able to exercise effective control who can access my data. So this is what sovereignty is about. Yeah, and this has several foundations. So one is where the data is located, if it's in Germany or the EU or outside of the EU, and who does the operation and the support services, because the headquarter location obviously counts. If it's US based or if it's Europe based, then it's GDPR first or it's Cloud Act first. So the legal framework is dependent on that. And also you will be it's important what experience and certificates a service provider brings with. Then you have all this access control. So who is controlling the access? Who is controlling the authentication and also the key management? Which regulations are followed, so compliance to which regulations is important, and also the network connection is also important. Yeah, what if you have the best platforms, but the networks are not secure? You again have a point where sovereignty can be breached. So when we now have a look into our data centers, this is our data center footprint. But I just want to highlight our European data centers. So T-Systems has 7 twin core data centers in the European Union. At least 5 of them are in Germany. So we can provide our services from European soil, from German soil, with our data center. This is where the majority of the SAP services for our customers run. And if we compare these properties with the sovereignty definition, we see we have the data in Germany and the EU. Our corporate headquarter is in Germany, in Frankfurt. So German law, European law applies. We have operations personnel from Germany and from the EU. We have more than 25 years of experience. We hold a lot of certificates: ISO, SOC, BSI, GXP, C5. There's a lot of these certificates that we have because we have been doing SAP services for a quarter of a century already. And we control the access to these systems, and we control the keys, or our customers hold the keys for these systems. So this is all in in the EU and or even in Germany. And of course, we adhere to the European and German regulations, also to regulated industries like financial industries, and our networks, no surprise, are the German telecom networks, which are also used for agencies and for military purposes. So we know how to operate secure networks. And why is this important for RISE? Because this platform, as we call it, our future cloud infrastructure platform, is certified by SAP as one of the SAP target platforms for RISE with SAP, or Cloud ERP Private, how it's called now. So we have been doing this for almost 2 years. It started in January 24, and we have a lot of customers that were very, very hesitant when they had to choose RISE, and they waited until there's a private cloud option in Germany. And if you see the properties of this platform, it's from a European point of view, it's a sovereign option that can be used in RISE. So SAP is your contract partner, but you can choose the tailored option of RISE with SAP or SAP Cloud Private, and choose T-Systems as your premium supplier. Then your data in Germany will be operated by a German company. This is how we manage our services. These are the different options we have. Of course, we have the hyperscaler option. Of course, we have also the classic hosting option, but we have all those under one cloud operation model, where we have a kind of operating system of deploying SAP systems regardless of the underlying infrastructure. And we also have a BSI certified version for the public sector. But basically, this is the same platform that we have as our private cloud, and this is also available in RISE. And these options are sovereign options. Yeah, so there is a sovereign option already available for RISE with SAP, and the technology we are using is Intel technology. And I'm happy, Jan, that you made it on time, so I can hand over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Uwe. Thank you, Robert. And apologies that I came a bit late. I had some technical difficulties, but that happens sometimes with these live events. Anyways, Jan Krüger, my name. I'm the technical account director at Intel, working with SAP and all the partners to actually enable our technologies in the marketplace. And today I wanted to share a little bit what the power of Intel Inside for sovereign clouds actually means, and what role we play within what Uwe has been sharing with you in the last couple of minutes, about how you can consume the various permutations of sovereignty, whether this is really full-fledged, fully certified BSI, VSNFD certified for public domain, or you just use as a hosting partner, or anything in between. The point is, if you go to my next slide, Uwe, real quick, is that we are committed to enabling the sovereign cloud ecosystem as being an open ecosystem. The point is here that really sovereignty comes also with the ability, as Uwe said, to understand on what infrastructure you're running on, that you can enforce certain controls. And certain controls require you to be aware of what's inside your sovereign cloud stack. And we want to make sure that what we contribute to the sovereign cloud stack itself is open, is available to anybody, everybody who wants to look into it. That's why we are driving a lot of things to open source, where everybody can have a look at what type of informations are being processed, how they are processed. So we ensure that we give you that transparency, that if you run your sovereign cloud through these systems on an Intel-based infrastructure, that we are complying with open standards, that we are making sure you understand how data is processed. On the backside, Intel is an American company, so we comply to US law, but we are also a global semiconductor who is providing millions of CPUs every year to all market segments. And so in order to support sovereign cloud offerings, we also need to make sure that we as a company, our foundry organizational arm, is complying with various certifications that are proving to T-Systems or to the supply chain of T-Systems that is then getting servers from their vendor of choice, are complying with certain standard when it comes to process, when it comes to security, when it comes to resiliency. The assurance levels are super important for T-Systems and the partner ecosystem to have the trust that is then brought further to you as an end customer running SAP workloads on T-Systems and giving the assurance that certification that Uwe was referring to, like BSI and C5 and others, they're also grounded into certificates that we provide on the hardware, right? It comes interconnected. So if we as a team here, like T-System and Intel, want to bring sovereign cloud to you in partnership with SAP that runs their software on top of it, we need to make sure that the whole stack is certified. Let's say it complies to certain standards. So there is the assurance available. And Intel is well established in the marketplace. And if you're looking to research out there from IDC or Gartner, x86 architecture represents 80% of the marketplace going forward. That's barely changing. And so we are really the platform of choice. And we are also, like T-Systems, a partner with SAP. So we are in a co-engineering, co-development, and technology alignment program with SAP, where we make sure that SAP Cloud ERP and Business Suite runs perfectly fine on our platforms. It delivers the necessary performance, it delivers the necessary resiliency, and combine that with the services from T-Systems, you will achieve one of the different flavors in your journey to become sovereign, right? So looking at the next pillar, if you quickly move on, is that within sovereignty, and Uwe mentioned that as well, is the ability to control where data resides, how data has been processed, who has access to the data. And we are playing and supporting this requirement through accelerated cryptography. So cryptography is a means to isolate information from each other, whether isolating your data from the hosting layer so that these systems might operate the data but might not be able to see the data, right? And therefore you could use and do use encryption. Same as within the SAP landscape, you can bring in your own cryptographic material. So you are encrypting the data with your own keys so that you are having the keys to the castle. And Intel is there as a foundational computing layer to make sure that those cryptographic functions are accelerated so they are not affecting performance, throughput, or responsiveness. And therefore, we are heavily invested into open standards for cryptography through FIPS certification like 140.2 and .3. We are also very much engaged in working with the standardization bodies on post-quantum resistant algorithms that we want to, we do accelerate actually with our current generation so that we are getting ready for that quantum computing era that is maybe around the corner, maybe 10 years away, nobody really knows, but quantum computing is here and it's going to stay here. And so we need to prepare our platform. And so through this, we are contributing into the needs of data sovereignty and sovereign computing to allow workloads like SAP to separate and isolate the workloads on the platform level. And you don't leave it to software alone. You combine it with hardware acceleration so you actually get the performance, resiliency, and protection that you are looking for. The other aspect, if you move one thing ahead, is on trusted supply chain, right? So this is a topic that is particularly relevant for us. It sounded a bit odd maybe to you as being a consumption point at the end of the day, but Intel has a global manufacturing footprint. And I said that at the beginning that we have certified all our processes within the foundry to comply with various regulations. But we also have a foundry in Europe, on European soil, in Ireland. It is one of our largest factories, and it has been used for global supply, but primarily we are using it for supplying our products into the EU, obviously, because it's very close by. And that gives us the ability to focus our supply chain for our product into Ireland, which has to comply with European law as it being on European soil. And from there, we are distributing the products into the EMEA market, whether to T-Systems or any other partner. What we are also providing as part of that manufacturing processes is what we call trusted supply chain. So we are basically allowing partners like T-Systems or even an SAP to verify through cryptographic means at the end of the day that the platform that they are deploying within their data centers is complying to the specification that has been given out, meaning once the system had been manufactured, it is arriving at T-Systems data center. It hasn't changed. There are no components being flipped. There are no components being changed. And that's true for hardware and the firmware itself. So that's why we call it trusted supply chain, because it gives you that assurance that the system you actually get into your sovereign cloud platform is trustworthy. Combined with the cryptography, it gives you that assurance. And T-System is then basically bringing all these systems with all the capabilities Uwe just mentioned to you, so that you can deploy your SAP workloads in the various flavors of sovereignty, right? Just data sovereignty, really fully fledged, certified with BSI, or something in between, or you just go as a hosting on T-Systems, right? Same is true also for the hyperscaler as well. But as Uwe outlined, there are pros and cons with that. We as Intel, we supply to the whole market and apply these processes to all the partners that want to include them into their sovereign cloud offerings. And therefore, I thought it's a good opportunity to share here how the power of Intel Inside within T-Systems sovereign cloud or general cloud offering is going to benefit the needs that you expect out of a sovereign cloud offering. So that's basically wraps it up on my little update here on what we are contributing into the world of sovereignty within the SAP context. And with that, I would give it back to Robert to open up the Q&A and to take it from here. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jan and Uwe, for sharing about the challenge. Just as a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, just go to that Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, type your question into the text box and select submit. Yeah, I thought it would be interesting. We didn't actually share the poll results on the screen. I don't know if you can do that now, Sean. But basically, only 10% had no concerns at all about using hyperscalers. Another 10% said hyperscalers were fine for non-critical workloads. 55% said that it would be okay, but they would prefer a European sovereign cloud option. And the remaining 25% said that it would not be okay and they needed a sovereign cloud option. That's the choice 4 answer. But we do have a question that has come in, and that is from an attendee who is a hospital that is running SAP, and they have currently RISE with SAP on AWS. And they're sort of deciding whether to stay there or whether to make another, like a sovereign cloud choice. But I mean, I guess the question that they're asking is there a regulation that asks them to use sovereign CSP, and whether that's, whether they can use that in part of their decision-making process. I don't know if you know, Uwe or Jan.
If there is a regulation, I don't know, to be honest. I know there are some industries where there is a requirement to use sovereign environments. And there are some companies that have internal regulations that say, okay, our HR data, our precious recipes or whatever cannot run on a non-sovereign environment, but I'm not aware of how this is in the health industry.
Yeah, I mean,
vertical, it's not an industry.
I think in healthcare, there are, in Germany in particular, regulations around how to process personal identifiable information and the patient information. So that has to be protect at all times. So that's where cryptography and all the stuff comes into play. But I think it also goes back on the point that from regulation point of view, right? EU like Cloud Act, AI Act, or things like the requirements from ENISA on the European level, they are not distinguishing between whether it's a US-based company or a European hosted company. I think the question is like Uwe outlined in his material, AWS or Azure or Google have to comply to the US law, irrespectively of where the data is, right? So I think for that person that asked this question, I think the question you need to answer as an organization is, will you have a requirement by the German government, let's say, that is forcing you to, or is mandating to use a European company, given that the US could always request from AWS that they have to share the data, and there's nothing that you could do against it. That's why I think that's the question, but there's no certification that would basically prove that in that regards.
Yeah, one of our attendees has chimed in to say that for health data, Social Security Code X might apply. Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, so looks like there may well be some regulations for health data, in Europe that organizations need to follow. So that should be part of your decision-making process. You need to sort of decide, what what sort of makes sense for you. There's another question that's coming. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Uwe.
May I just one remark on that? It does not necessarily has to be an either/or decision. Yeah, it can also be for some of the workloads you choose the sovereign version, and there are other data that are non-critical that can easily remain on a hyperscaler platform. This is also something that we provide to our customers. So we are currently, our most famous and biggest example is the RISE transformation of Deutsche Telekom, and they have chosen a hybrid strategy. So 2/3 of their workloads will go on the private cloud and 1/3 will go on Google Cloud Platform in RISE.
Yeah, that actually, that's a good point, Uwe, and it sort of leads into our next question here, which is obviously with core ERP systems, it makes sense, for it to make a sovereign choice. But what should organizations do with their data warehouses? For example, ECC is end of life. BW and customers are moving to Databricks, Snowflake, Microsoft Fabric. Some are using SAP BDC. Obviously, SAP BDC is a software as a service option, so you don't get a choice as to, where that information is stored. I'm not sure if I think SAP is putting that on hyperscalers. I don't believe they're hosting internally on SAP Cloud infrastructure. There is some, sovereign SAP Cloud infrastructure, although I have, ever since I worked for SAP and I've come to SAPinsider 6 years ago now, I sort of got the impression that SAP is moving away from, owned data centers because it's something they simply couldn't compete on. They're expensive to stand up and do something with. But
this may change, but yes,
it might change.
It's a good question.
Apparently, it's not. Apparently, I'm incorrect here. SAP is not necessarily moving away, but yeah. I mean, I guess the sort of bigger question is, and maybe this is what you were sort of talking about, Uwe, in terms of maybe the choice is both and, right? It's not necessarily either or.
Exactly. Yeah, and this is the point. I don't know where this is going to develop. When you think 10 months back, this discussion was completely different. Yeah, nobody was talking about is there a need for additional sovereignty or not. Even 2 years back, there was this public cloud first. Everyone was looking into how can we deploy everything on the hyperscalers, and the perception has changed. And I think also the offers have to adopt. They haven't yet. Yeah, so there's not much you can do. Robert, you said it. BDC is a software as a service that where you have no choice. But this may change in the future as the demand rises quite fast at the moment for solutions like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting one. And yeah, SAP is, does have inside their own data centers, they do have, they do have support for, it's going to push my German here, uh, Verschlusssache,
Verschlusssache,
nur
yeah.
für den, die,
VSNFD,
yeah,
which is the first level of military secrecy, basically.
right,
Yeah, and
yeah.
there.
Yeah, and then they also have EN 50600 that they're supporting, and ITG support as well in SAP data centers. So yeah, and I guess SAP is building new data centers in Waldorf and Roth. But yeah, I mean, either way, this question of sovereignty is coming into play, as you said, Uwe, in a way that it hasn't before. This year has seen a considerable straining of the relationship, let's put it that way, between the US and Europe, and things that may never have come up in the past have the potential to arise now. And this is where, the question around data sovereignty, and particularly for European customers, choosing data centers that are located in Europe, can make a big difference depending on the regulations that they need to follow. Yeah. So, other questions? We've had a couple of interesting ones so far. Does anyone else have something they would like to ask? Maybe maybe Uwe, you can sort of chat about, when you're talking with customers in Europe, what I mean, obviously this year you said there's been a shift in people's thinking. What are the big questions that people are asking primarily when it comes to sovereignty? Is it around this, how can I navigate these regulations? Is it around I have to make sure my data is protected? Is it around, what choices do I have? Is it how can you help me?
Yeah. um, I think the perception of the problem has changed significantly. Yeah. So the perception that Europe is very dependent in many ways, not only in this way, in many ways from other countries, if it's infrastructure, if it's medicine, if it's labor, if it's you name it. Yeah, there is a lot of dependencies where we have to learn how to navigate that. And one of these dependencies is with the technology platforms. And they are not automatically bad. The hyperscalers are really great technology. Yeah, they have so incredible services, and they have an incredible flexibility and scalability. The only thing is it's a pity that we don't have something comparable yet in Europe, and this is the same for a lot of other things. And this changes, and so people are looking specifically into, are there any alternatives? What can we use instead of the obvious choices? And so I think there is a chance to really talk to customers and tell them, okay, what do you really want? What do you need? It's just you want to make sure, or you have to, or you're just interested. And this is because of that, we really suggest to do this analysis at the beginning to really find out where are the needs and what are the answers to these needs and what is the way forward. So we have been doing this always to ensure the best way towards RISE. And now there's this additional dimension of identifying the needs for sovereignty and the solutions for that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Uwe. Jan, are you sort of seeing a similar change in conversations with the customers that you're having? Change in the conversations with customers that you are having.
Yes, indeed. It's like Uwe said, there's the awareness now growing within the market around having a compute on European soil for all the given reasons we talked about. And unfortunately, we don't have an hyperscaler of that size and scale like the American companies. But I mean, T-Systems is offering or have a wide range of offers around that space, right? And I think for now, we are starting with Cloud ERP as the first platform, which is a core of many of the organizations here also represented. And when it comes then to other workloads around, we have the same question. And one of them you asked, like, what's with business warehouse scenarios, what I do with them. But it's also with AI, right? With AI, it's the same problem. Now everything is driving towards implementing agentic solutions on top of an SAP and non-SAP landscape, where we have the exact same question. And so we, from the Intel point of view, as I try to illustrate, we are a technology provider with our platform and we deliver those solutions then through our partners like T-Systems and others. And I think for each and every enterprise, depending on where they are in their journey, let's say, I think they need to look for all the different workloads they have on what level of sovereignty they actually need. Because there are so many flavors within it, whether it's data sovereignty, whether it's more like a regulatory sovereignty, it's a geographical sovereignty, and so on and so forth. And for some of the scenarios, you might be very well fulfilling those with going with an hyperscaler sovereign cloud offering. And for some others, you might not because you would need a sovereign cloud offering that is BSI certified, like the gentleman who asked on the healthcare question. When data is processed that it's regulated, you might go for the sovereign part. If you have other data that is not regulated, you might go for a less or different sovereign level, let's say, or maturity, if you want to say so. And that's why I think we try to support all the market players and all our ecosystem with our open platforms to make sure that whatever level of sovereignty each and every solution is going to build, it's going to run on an x86 Intel platform and delivers on the needs, right? And from there, I think it's up to partners like T-Systems, the hyperscalers, SAP themselves to build a product that arrives at the market that is going to help customers to make that decision, to have that choice on what level of sovereignty you would need, and then deploy the various SAP solutions in a way that they fulfill your local or your EMEA-wide regulations. And I think that's an awareness that's growing, that we see more and more questions coming in, even to us, and also to our partners on what else can we do and how we do support certain of their activities. And I think that's not going to slow down in the next couple of months and years. I think now we are already above this tipping point where solutions are being built, where adoption is going to go and grow. And I think that the regulations that are in place today, they also will force certain decisions be made in the enterprise market.
Yeah,
And it's
no,
an
great.
opportunity, yeah. It's not just a threat. It's an opportunity to really think back, what can we use from a European point of view and give it a little more emphasis on this side. This would not have happened if everything would have commenced as the last year. So I think this is an opportunity. Last week we had from the DS AG we had a Thementag where all the different cloud providers in Germany, in Europe, were on stage and spoke. Also, Stack IT and Microsoft with a sovereign solution. And so there is a lot going on, and there needs to be more of that. And I think now is a good time for all these little initiatives to really be recognized and to have a stand against the competition.
Yeah, yeah. Great points, gentlemen. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. If we did not get to your question, and I see at least one question here that we did not answer, someone will follow up with you in the next couple of business days. Thank you for attending today's webinar. As I said earlier, shortly after the event, you will be able to access the presentation on demand so that you can share it with colleagues and friends that might not have been able to be here in person. So on behalf of SAP Insider and our guests, Uwe from T-Systems and Jan from Intel, thank you so much for your time and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Have a great time. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.